Welcome back, YouTube, to another episode of the PJ Hoop Podcast. I'm your host, PJ, and on today's episode, I have a multitude of topics that I want to touch on with you guys. I'm going to talk about the NBA Red Zone. I'm going to talk about the NBA TV rights, the potential NBA expansion. I'm also going to talk about the Peach Jam finale, which took place about 2 weeks ago. I'm also going to talk about my top 5 Summer League winners. And if I have time at the end of the podcast, I'm also going to talk about the NBA Cup groups and who's all in what group. But I'm going to just start it straight off with a couple things that I just thought were really interesting. Comes out that I guess the company Wells Fargo, the bank Wells Fargo, is deciding to drop their name away from the Philadelphia 76ers arena. Thought that was really interesting. I'm assuming maybe their contract's up or something, but so within the next, I don't know, year or two, the Sixers, it's no longer going to be at the Wells Fargo Arena. So I thought that was kind of something interesting, and kind of just low-key news that kind of, just some news. But also another interesting thing that I thought the NBA kind of just put out was that they're going to start an NBA Red Zone. Now, if you're a football fan, you know about the NFL Red Zone, and essentially from what I read and what I learned is that that's essentially what the NBA is going to be about. So, big moments in games, probably I'm assuming the last 2 minutes of games or last 2 minutes before a half, the exact same as the NFL Red Zone. So, I'm actually really excited for that. That's supposed to start in 2025-2026 season. So, I think that's going to be really, really exciting. And then another thing the NBA kind of just finalized, which I kind of have mixed feelings about, is the new TV deal. Obviously, if you're an NBA fan, you know that TNT, Thursdays on TNT were big with Ernie, Shaq, Chuck, and Kenny. That was really big. So it's unfortunate to see that this upcoming year is the last year for TNT for inside of the NBA to be on TV. So that's kind of disappointing. But I also saw some things that said that they're going to try and get the whole crew onto a new network. We'll see how that works. I know Charles Barkley is kind of sour right now about the whole thing. But yeah, I want to talk about also what deals they ended up coming with. The NBA signed a deal with basically with Amazon, with Peacock, with NBC, and they're keeping their one with Disney with ESPN, of course, because obviously that's the main cash cow. But yeah, so I just want to kind of go over what that new schedule is going to look like. I believe it starts in 2025, 2026. So we got one more year with TNT again and the normal, not I ain't going to say normal, but the one we've been accustomed to. We're going to keep that same TV schedule. But yeah, I just want to go over the new TV schedule with you guys. So for the following year, we're up to speed with it. So it looks like Mondays is going to be Peacock. Tuesday is going to be NBC. Wednesday is going to be ESPN. Thursday is going to be Amazon. Friday is going to be Amazon and ESPN. Saturday is going to be ABC and Amazon. NBC is going to get 100 games. ESPN is going to get 80 games. Amazon's going to get 66 games. And on the prime coverage, NBC is going to get opening night plus NBA All-Star plus playoffs plus some conference final games. ESPN is going to get Christmas Day games, NBA playoffs. They're going to also get some finals games. And then Amazon's, I'm assuming, I think they have all rights to the NBA Cup. They're going to have some play-in games and then some playoff games. So that's what that TV schedule is going to look like starting again in 2025, 2026 is where they're going to head. And that's why I said I feel mixed feelings about it, because part of me is like, dang, we're losing TNT, but the other part of me is like kind of excited because then I'm going to get basketball. I have all these TV subscriptions, so I'm getting basketball 7 days a week. So I'm hyped about that, because over the years I didn't have NBA TV. I usually watch my games in other ways, but it's going to be nice to be able to watch, games 7 nights a week. So I'm looking forward to that. But again, it's unfortunate we're potentially losing the TNT crew, but we'll see. We'll see what the other networks come up with. The next thing that I really wanted to talk about was the NBA expansion. Obviously, we all know that the NBA is looking at adding 1 to 2 teams. I'm seeing 2 teams. I'm seeing, obviously, the main 2 cities that people are wanting is back in Seattle and then also potentially in Vegas. So what would have to happen there is either Memphis, Minnesota, or New Orleans would have to move. I'm of the component, I would probably move, Memphis would probably make the most logical sense to me. But we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing. One of those 3 teams are going to have to move. Like I said, I would probably do Memphis just because geographically where it's located, or even New Orleans. New Orleans is fine too, but I would probably do Memphis more so because I think Memphis is closer to more of the East Coast teams, anyways. But the next big thing that I really wanted to cover and that I'm excited about is what happened 2 weeks ago in high school basketball. So if you're not keeping up with high school basketball, you may not know, but they just finished up the Peach Jam, which the Peach Jam is like, in my opinion, the Peach Jam is the biggest high school basketball tournament in the world. It's so essentially you have all your best AAU teams at this one tournament. And so you get the best of the best in high school basketball. Some people argue and say that the Geico tournament is the biggest, but I would say more so the Peach Jam, because the Peach Jam is predominantly AAU teams, whereas the Geico is going to be more your high school and your prep school teams. So you're going to get a lot more, like all the talent is like concentrated on AAU teams essentially, like anybody that knows basketball know AAU basketball is more competitive than your average high school basketball. So like I said, Peach Jam was big to me. I enjoyed Peach Jam, but yeah, I'm just going to dive straight into it because it was a highly, highly anticipated championship game between the Oakland Soldiers out of California and the Knight Riders out of Florida. Now, if you're not familiar with either team, that is fine. I'm here to give you the inside scoop on a little bit of background of each team, and you may know some of the players on each team. So I'm going to start off with the Knight Riders. So the Knight Riders won the 15U and the 16U at the Peach Jam. So they're back-to-back champs at the Peach Jam. And in this championship game, they have the opportunity to become the first team to win the 15U, 16U, and essentially the 18U, 17U, or whatever. They have the opportunity to become the first team to ever do that. The Knight Rider team consisted of a bunch of highly rated 5-star players. One kid that I personally didn't know about until I watched this game was a kid named Caleb Wilson. Caleb Wilson's the number 5th ranked player in the class of 2025. He's a 6'9" forward, and I'll go more deep dive on like him later on. But so he's on that team. The most notable player on the team, arguably the best player in college and high school basketball, you can argue it, is Cameron Boozer, and he's the number 2 ranked player in the class of 25. And the other player that's also on that team is his twin brother, Caden Boozer. He's ranked number 17th in the class of 25. But also there was another kid who I didn't know about on the team. He's ranked number 64th in the class of 25. His name is Dante Allen. And again, I'll go more deep dive into him later on in the video, later on as I, go into the game. But so those are the players that are on the Knight Riders team. This was the first year that they added Caleb Wilson to the team. All the other players have been together they won the last 2 together. So they, very good camaraderie. Caleb Wilson was just a bonus player, and he's a forward. He's 6'9", so small forward, power forward, whatever you want to call him. But then on the opposite side, you got the Oakland Soldiers, who is led by arguably the best player in college. I mean, high school. I don't know why I keep saying college. In high school basketball, that's AJ DeBonsis. He's the number 1 rated player in the class of 2025. He's also going to be making his high school decision his college decision in February of 2025. He's going to decide what school he wants to go to for college. And then also another player that's on his team was Tyron Stokes. And Tyron Stokes is the number 1 rated player in class of 2026. Tyron Stokes is only 16, so for him to be playing up in comp, big deal. But again, I'll go deep dive into who he is and stuff later on in the video. But yeah, so that was the matchup. Those were the 2 teams in the primary, in the main championship game. It was those 2 teams. It was highly anticipated. This was my first time watching a high school game in years. Extensively watching it. Watching it from the beginning to the end. I watched it all the way through. Took a lot from it. I learned a lot. And it just, gave me so much joy. But, so if you're not familiar with AJ DeBonsis, he's a small forward. His player comp to me is going to be along that Brandon Miller, Paul George, type player. Kevin Durant, going to throw KD in there. That 6'9", 6'10", scoring machine with potential 2-way abilities. That's AJ DeBonsis. And his teammate Tyron Stokes, just from that was my so I've heard of Tyron Stokes and I watched like little clips of him, but watching an extensive game of his game, he kind of reminded me a little bit of Miles Bridges of the Charlotte Hornets. He kind of reminded me of him a little bit. Very, very physical, very built like a truck, and the kid's 16. So it blew my mind seeing him move. I was like, this kid is huge, you know. But yeah, so that was Tyron Stokes. First glances, just kind of watching how each team was playing. The Oakland Soldiers had Tyron Stokes playing more of a point forward kind of position, which was interesting to me. Like I said, because he's a bigger kid. He's about 6'9" too, but he got weight on him. You know, he got some weight on him. He got to be about he got to be at least like 235, 240, bro. Tyron Stokes, he was a big kid, but he moved well. He was very fluid. They kind of had him running the point forward for the team. He was running the point guard. So I thought that was really interesting. He wasn't really looking to score in the first half. I could tell, you know, he's probably not per se used to playing the point position. I could tell in the first half he was being very passive. Wasn't really looking to be aggressive. You know, I could just tell he's not a traditional point, you know. But he had some ball handling skills. He made some good passes. AJ DeBonsis, I believe, kept him in striking distance the whole first half. I don't think it was wretchedly close. He kept them in the game. You could tell that they were playing a lot of iso ball. The Oakland Soldiers were playing a lot of iso ball, whereas the Knight Riders, you could tell they had that camaraderie. They were playing more of a team ball, and you could tell they were scoring a lot easier in the first half. And I was surprised that the game was what it was going into halftime. I thought the point differential was going to be a lot substantial, but going into halftime, it was a fairly close game. The third quarter, it got interesting. Going into halftime, like I said, DeBontis kept them in the game, but third quarter he went completely nuclear. Okay, that's where I seen the scoring and the killer mentality. He was on a different level. Okay, like I could see in that third quarter why they had him projected as number one over Cam Boozer, even though I believe, in my opinion, at this very moment, Cameron Boozer is a much better all-around player than AJ DeBontis. But AJ DeBontis, for sure, offensively is nuclear. And I seen it, you know. And they were wearing him down throughout the game. They had Caleb Wilson, who was a very outstanding defender. They had him guarding him, and they also had Cameron Boozer, who's a very good defender in his own right as well. Those were the main two players guarding AJ DeBontis throughout the game. And third quarter, AJ DeBontis, I just felt like had a lot of moments where he kind of got the best of them. He got a little hot from three for a little bit there, and he was feeling himself. And like I said, he kept them in the game. He kept them in the game. But at the end of it all, it took Cam Boozer and company. They were just too much. I could tell in the fourth quarter, AJ DeBontis got gassed. On the plus side, though, Tyron Stokes did start to help a lot more as the game progressed. Really going into the second half. I think he had about 18 to 20 points in the second half alone. I could tell. That's when I noticed, because going into halftime, I was like, okay, why is this kid ranked number one in his class, you know? I was questioning it. But the second half, that's when I seen it. I was like, okay, I can see why he's probably ranked number one, even though I haven't watched or really took the time to dive into all the other prospects in the class of 26. I'll probably do that more probably towards, you know, December, January, later on in the year when I have time to really kind of look at that young nucleus, those young kids coming up. But I could see the potential in Tyron Stokes. Like I said, he had ball handling skills. Physically, he held his own, okay? For a kid that's 16, held his own. Second half, like I said, he woke up and he's starting to get into motion. But I want to talk more about Cam Boozer, because Cam Boozer played great defense. And if you watch the game, he could have easily scored 25, 30 points, okay? Every time he had the ball and he wanted to score, he scored. He was dominant. You know, he was very dominant, shot extremely efficient. I'll go over his and everybody else's numbers in a second, but he was just extremely, you could just tell. That's why I said right now I would say he's the better player than AJ DeBontis, because he affects the game in a multitude of ways. In scoring, passing, rebounding, defense. you could tell he had his imprint on the game completely, and even physically, like his body, he's ready. Like Cam Boozer's ready. Okay, like he's a full package. I can see the DeBontis potential, and I see why he's number one over Cam Boozer. But right in this moment, Cam Boozer is for sure. Let's say you put Cam Boozer on a team with a bunch of NBA role players, and you put AJ DeBontis on a team with a bunch of NBA role players. Cam Boozer's team is for sure going to perform a lot better than AJ DeBontis' team would, for sure, no doubt. But I can see, like I said, I can see why they have DeBontis number one, because his scoring potential, it's like I said, it's going to be like your Brandon Miller, your Paul George, your Kevin Durant. Like he's got that scoring potential, okay? And it was on full display. He scored in a multitude of ways, but I could just tell he was really gassed. Another player on that team that played really well was Dante Allen. Again, I told you I was not familiar with his game at all. I didn't know who he was, but all game long, Dante Allen just had just timely baskets, layup here, goes 7-8 possessions, you don't score, jump shot here, free throws here. I'm going to be real. By the end of the game, I had no idea that the kid scored the amount of points he scored. I was personally really, really shocked. I think he had 20 points, and I was just like, what? He has 20? Are you seriously? But he was for sure, he was hooping, okay? And I kind of just want to also dive more into their numbers. I just hinted at it. I want to kind of just give you guys a rundown of how these players did end up performing throughout the tournament and in that game in particular. And also, for a disclaimer, the Knight Riders did end up winning the game. So they're the first team ever to win the 15U, 16U, and the 17U, or 18U, whatever you want to consider the last one. First team ever to do it. They ended up holding a post press conference with Cam Boozer, and they're asking him, hey, do you think you guys are the greatest high school team? And he didn't say so. He just said, we got to be in the conversation, and they should. That's crazy to be able to do that, and have that kind of consistency. And it just shows what kind of player he is, because he's been at the helm of all three teams, So shout out to the Knight Riders, and, congratulations to them for winning the third in a row. But I kind of just want to talk about Cameron Boozer and what he did in that game. In that game, Cameron Boozer dropped 19 points. He had 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 blocks. He had 2 turnovers, but his shooting numbers were insane. He shot 7 of 8, 87.5% from the field. He only took 1 3. He made his 1 3. But he only took 4 free throws, but he finished with 19. And I told you guys, he could have easily had 25 to 30. Easily. But he had a very mature game, too. Like, just watching him, he was very mature in his approach, very methodical. You could tell he has a very high basketball IQ, and I'm very much looking forward to see how he pans out, how his season goes in high school. I'm going to be watching him all season long. Hopefully, I'm a Duke Blue Devil fan, so hopefully he ends up coming to Duke with his little twin brother, because they're the childs of Carlos Boozer, who also went to Duke and ended up having an NBA career with the Bulls and a couple other teams, but the Jazz. So I'm hoping he goes to Duke. So that's what he averaged in that game. Throughout the whole tournament, he actually led the whole Peach Jam tournament in scoring at 24.5 points per game. He averaged 13 rebounds, and he was first in rebounds as well in the tournament. And of course, he won the offensive MVP for the Peach Jam for the finale. Shout out to Cam Boozer. Another player, I kind of talked about him a little bit, Caleb Wilson, a player I was not familiar with his game. Before I even watched the game, as the game went on, they were talking, like briefly giving, previews of who the player are and the rank, and they said he was fifth, and I was like, what? I was like, who is this kid? And so I paused the game, kind of did my deep dive, try to understand who he was. But he impressed me a lot in that game. He actually won the Peach Jam defensive MVP. Throughout the whole tournament, he averaged 3 blocks and 2 steals. And again, during that game, I seen his defense on display. He was all over the court, affecting the game, guarding AJ DeBontis very well. He ended up having 8 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 6 blocks. He shot 44% from the field. He was 0 for 1 from 3. But that's one of those kids, and now I know him. He's going to be on my radar. I think he may be one of those players where it's like your Jeremy Grant, your Aaron Gordon type player, where it's like your Mikal Bridges type player, where it's like, okay, we need one of these guys on our team that's just going to affect the game. Okay, and he's probably not going to be a high-level scorer, but affecting the game defensively, making just timely plays, timely baskets. I think he has a future. Okay, that was my first time watching him, and I'm pretty good when it comes to like scouting out prospects and stuff. He was one of those ones where I was like, okay, he's got game. Like I can see this kid being a defensive ace, for a team and developing better offensive. Like he has a place. That kid's, I don't know how he is personally in his personal life, but the kid got game, and he's got a lot of promise. The next player I want to talk about also is Caden Boozer. Again, this is the twin brother of Cameron Boozer. He's a little shorter. Caden, I believe, is 6'4". He led the tournament. He's a point guard. He led the tournament actually in assists. He averaged 6.5 assists a game. In that game, he had 8 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, 1 steal, 2 turnovers. He shot 40% from the field, so not that good. 0 for 2 from 3. It's going to be interesting to see if him and his brother are going to be a package deal. I'm assuming they will be. But we'll see what he becomes. I don't know if he's necessarily going to be able to be an NBA point guard starter. He may be able to be like a rotational, backup point guard for an NBA team, but he didn't like wow me, but he made timely plays. Like he ran the point guard position nicely. He didn't get sped up. He kind of controlled the pace. But offensively he wasn't wowing me. But his playmaking, which obviously is a part of offense, but I'm talking like scoring wise, wasn't really impressed with that. His jump shot, wasn't really impressed with that either. He wasn't really aggressive. But I loved his playmaking. That's why I said he'll probably maybe be an NBA backup. We'll see if his offense will blossom more as the season goes on. We'll see if his offense blossoms. But right now, that's where I kind of project him as a potential backup, maybe a starter, but probably more so NBA backup, there's nothing wrong with that. Most of us don't even make it to the NBA. So that's the other twin. The other player, I kind of talked about him a little bit earlier, Dante Allen. Not familiar with his game whatsoever until this game. He was again ranked in the 60th on ESPN's board, which, I don't know. I don't know if they have him ranked too low or what, but he's going to be somebody I'm going to be keeping my eye on because I liked his game. He seemed like he knew when to pick his spots to score. He knew when to move the ball. Like, it just seemed like he understood the game. And he was just at the right place at the right time, scoring at the right time. He just showed me like a level of basketball IQ that I really liked. Dante Allen finished that game with 21 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 3 turnovers, but his shooting percentages were amazing. He shot 61.5% from the field. He was 3 for 4 from 3, which was 75%. He shot 2 for 4 from the free throw line, which, obviously it is what it is, But, yeah, that's a kid I would keep your eyes on, even though he's ranked really low in ESPN's rankings. I don't know. He seems solid to me. I don't know what he's going to become. I don't know, but it's just somebody. He seemed like at least he's good enough to be on a college team and start, But we'll see. We'll see what he is. But he's somebody that's going to be on my radar just because I like the way he played. We're going to go back also and talk about A.J. DeBontis and Tyron Stokes. A.J. DeBontis finished the tournament third in scoring. He averaged 23 points in the tournament. In this game in particular, didn't shoot that well. Again, he had Cameron Boozer on him. He had Caleb Wilson on him, who, just from what I watched, are probably 2 of the best defenders in high school basketball. They made it hard on him. But DeBontis did get the best of them in the third quarter. I'll give that to him. But he finished the game with 25 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 blocks. He had 1 turnover. Didn't shoot that well, like I just said. He shot 10 for 26 from the field. I love that he was aggressive, though. Took 26 shots against that other team. Let me know. Like I said, he's a killer. And I seen in the third quarter. He got loose with it. He got loose with the rock for sure. But yeah, he shot 10 for 26 from the field, 38.5% overall from the field. He shot 2 for 7 from 3. Those 2 threes really came in the third quarter where he had his little spark, where he got a little warm. He shot 3 for 3 from the free throw line. I'm not too worried about his field goal shooting because if you've seen who was on his team, it was really just him and Tyron Stokes. They had to go up against four ranked players on the other team that had camaraderie. So I don't hold that against him. For me, that game, I was just looking at how was he scoring? What multitude of ways was he going about trying to get the ball in the basket? How was he affecting the game? Was he aggressive? And he was all those. So he checked my boxes for me in that game, and I didn't have them winning. I picked the Knight Riders to win because, yeah, I just picked them to win. They had the camaraderie. They had the ranked players. I was like, they're probably going to win. But then also Tyron Stokes. Tyron Stokes had a pretty good tournament as well. Remind you guys, he's only 16, but he's an M1 rated player in class of 26. Tyron Stokes finished 7th in scoring in the tournament, 5th in rebounds, 6th in assists. Kind of just shows you his versatility offensively. I think defensively he still has a ways to go, but he was really well. He played really well. In this game, he ended up scoring. He had 20 points, 8 rebounds. I'm sorry. Let me correct myself. During the tournament, he averaged 20 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. In this game, he had 22 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 block, 2 steals. He shot 8 for 19, 42% from the field, 2 for 3, 67% from 3. He was 4 for 4 from the free throw line. But again, second half, I could tell he was a lot more, either A, he was probably more comfortable, or B, maybe he just had a halftime talk with somebody, but he turned a switch. He had a much, much better second half. First half wasn't horrible, but you could see he was 16 in the first half. Whereas the second half, he looked like he belonged. So shout out to Tyron Stokes. That's a player, if you're not familiar with him, I would keep your eyes on him and see how he does. This would be his junior year. Somebody to keep his eye on. We'll see if he keeps his number 1 spot in the class of 26. There's some other kids. I think his name's Brandon McCoy. I think he's in 26. I liked his game. I think he's in class of 26. I really liked his game. But yeah, so that's how that game ended up going. Again, I can see why DeBonsis was ranked number 1, why Cam's number 2. At this very moment, Cam is a better player. Trust me if you want to. Trust me if you don't. He's for sure the better player in high school right now. But DeBonsis, I can see why they have him 1 because his literally offensive potential and even his defensive potential. He's like 6'9", 6'10". So I can see it, The next thing I kind of want to talk about is the NBA Summer League. I want to tell you guys about who ended up being on the first team all Summer League. That sounds so funny to say that. But first team All Summer League, second team All Summer League. I'm going to tell you about the Summer League MVP. What team ended up winning the Summer League and who was the final Summer League MVP. Again, that sounds so weird, but I'm going to tell you that. And then also I'm going to tell you my top 5 winners from the Summer League. So I'm just going to take a brief moment, get some water, and then we'll dive straight into the Summer League. So, with the Summer League, welcome back. We back. So, Summer League, first team, all Summer League. The players that made first team, all Summer League was guard for the Rockets, Reed Shepherd, Scottie Pippen Jr., who's a guard for the Memphis Grizzlies, Jordan Miller. Shout out to Jordan Miller. I'm going to dive more into him in a second, but shout out to Jordan Miller of the Clippers. He was on first team. Gigi Jackson of the Memphis Grizzlies was on first team, and link in the description below. I actually was talking about Gigi Jackson in my previous podcast called The Full Court Press that I did last summer. I only did like 3 episodes. I talked about him last summer and how I was looking forward to him playing. And but yeah, shout out to Gigi Jackson. And then also the center that ended up being on first team was a player that I talked about a couple episodes ago, Khalil Ware for the Miami Heat. He made first team all Summer League. On the second team, we got Bud Carrington of the Washington Wizards, Jaime Jaquez of the Miami Heat, Jalen Wilson of the Brooklyn Nets, Jarris Walker of the Indiana Pacers. Jarris Walker, another player that I talked about last summer on my last pod before, when he got drafted by Indiana. I talked about him a little bit. So again, check in the description below. I, again, talked about some of these rookies. Well, I guess they'll be sophomores this year, but I talked about them in my old episode. And then also the center was Donovan Clingan. Shout out to Donovan Clingan. He plays for the Portland Trail Blazers. And so the Summer League MVP was Jalen Wilson of the Brooklyn Nets. He ended up averaging. So I fixed my computer. So I'll just pick up where I left off about Jalen Wilson because I want to tell you a little bit more about Jalen Wilson and how he performed in the summer league. So if you're not familiar with Jalen Wilson went to Kansas. He played 4 years at Kansas, and he's been on the Brooklyn Nets since then. But yeah, he had a really good. He ended up winning the summer league MVP. I ain't gonna lie, I was kind of surprised that he won it. Thought there was a couple other players that played a little bit better than him, but he ended up winning it. During the summer league, he averaged 22 points, 5 rebounds. He shot 47% from the field. On 8 attempts, he shot 55% from 3. So, he was on a burner. And he shot 89.5% from the free throw line, which Jalen Wilson's game was not like that at Kansas. So I don't know if he was just on a burner for these 5-6 games or what. But, yeah, so he won the MVP. The team that ended up winning the summer league was the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat ended up winning Summer League, led by Josh Christopher, which if you're not familiar who Josh Christopher is, he went to Arizona State. He was actually a really highly rated 2 guard in high school. Didn't really pan out at Arizona State, didn't really get drafted. I think he went undrafted actually. And Miami, I think he ended up bouncing around to a couple other teams and then settled with Miami. But he won the MVP for that game, and their team won. But the best player on their team was Khalil Ware. And again, I talked about Khalil Ware in my last episode, and I think in my pre-draft episode and in my post-draft episode, I talked about Khalil Ware as one of my players to keep your eyes on. So, I does this stuff. I really do this stuff. But those are my 5 winners. Actually, no. Those are the people that won the awards for the Summer League. So now I'm going to go into my 5 winners of Summer League. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to Rob Dillingham because he led the Summer League in points created. So shout out to him for that. He kind of had a slow start in the Summer League, but the last few games he ramped it up. He got a lot better. He had a game, I think he had like 25 and 12 a game. I think it was like his last game or something, but he got a lot more comfortable, I could tell, the back end of Summer League, but he didn't make my list for my 5. But I wanted to give him a shout out because I thought he deserved a shout out. My first player I want to give a shout out to, I kind of just talked about him a little bit, is my guy Khalil Ware. Khalil Ware during Summer League averaged 18 points, 8 rebounds, 1 steal, 2 blocks. He shot 62% from the field. He took 2 threes a game. He shot 30% from 3 and 70% from the free throw line. I expect big things of Khalil Ware. He has a very funky hook shot that I don't like at all. But other than that, Khalil Ware, I wanted to give a shout out to him because I do believe he's going to be a part of Miami's rotation in the season upcoming. And quite frankly, and it may or may not be a hot take, but I think he might start at center for Miami. If not at the beginning of the season, at some point he's going to start, I think. Because I believe Bam, and I've been saying it for years, Bam can't be your starting center. Respectfully, he's just too small. So him being your 4, Bam can be your 4, and I think that suits him a lot better. So I think Khalil Ware might start at their 5, at least, and that's also what I'm hoping that he does start. So that's something for you guys to look out for. Khalil Ware, get familiar with the name because he is going to get minutes on that Miami Heat team for sure. Number 2 on my list is Reed Sheppard. Reed Sheppard, he got drafted by the Houston Rockets, point guard, about 6'2", 6'3". During Summer League, he averaged 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. He averaged 5 turnovers, but he also averaged 3 steals and a block. His shooting numbers were okay, pretty solid from the field. He shot 50% from the field, 28% from 3, 75 from the free throw line. Just a disclaimer, if you guys are not familiar with Reed Sheppard's game, he's a way better shooter than 28% from 3, and he's a better free throw shooter than that 75% from free throws. I'm telling y'all that right now if you're not familiar with that. He's by far a much better shooter than that. So shout out to Reed Sheppard. He had a really good Summer League. I'm interested to see how many minutes he gets for that Rockets team because that Rockets team is filled with a bunch of hounds, man, a bunch of hounds that are hungry. But yeah, in one of my later pods, I'll dive more into all the teams in the Rockets for sure. Number 3 on my list, you may or may not be familiar with him. His name is Tristan da Silva. He got drafted by the Orlando Magic. He went to University of Colorado. Colorado basketball had a really good season last year with him and the dude's name is KJ Simmons. I think his name is KJ Simmons. And then also Cody Williams was also on that team as well. But he missed a lot of games because he was hurt. But yeah, De Silva had a really good year at Colorado. This summer league played great. I think I got to look at their rotation, but I think he's going to get minutes on the Orlando Magic team. During summer league, he averaged 18 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal. He shot 61% from the field, and on 6 attempts, he shot 59% from 3. And he also shot only 3 attempts per game from free throws, but he shot 100% from there. Tristan Da Silva he's a really good scorer. He's a really good shooter. He's a bigger wing. He's about 6'8", 6'9". He's a mature dude. Obviously, he went to Colorado, I believe, for 3 to 4 years. I think he was at Colorado all 4 years, or 3 to 4 years. But really good player. I like his game. Like I said, I watched him last year at Colorado, so I knew who he was. And he was very efficient during summer league and played really, really well for Orlando's summer league team. So if you're not familiar with his game, that's a player to keep your eyes out on as the season progresses, because Orlando needs shooting. They got Da Silva, who's, I think, going to get some run. I also believe Caleb Houston should probably get some run. We'll see if Jett Howard gets some run. They have shooters. They just don't play them, and I don't know if it's because they feel like those players haven't developed yet or what. But Caleb Houston can shoot. Jett Howard can shoot. And for sure, Tristan Da Silva can shoot. So we'll see. We'll see if they unlock and allow some of these other players to play, because they may have to sacrifice a little bit of that defense and let some of these offensive guys, some of these shooters play, even though they're not that good at defense. Another player on my list that I want to give a shout out to is Kling Klong. Is his nickname, Donovan Clingan. Clingan got drafted by the Portland Trail Blazers. Clingan led the summer league in blocks and rebounds. And during the summer league, he ended up averaging 9 points, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 4 blocks, 3 turnovers. He shot 36% from the field. He attempted 3 threes a game, shot 23% from 3. Only went to the free throw line, once a game. He only averaged 2 attempts for 50% from the free throw line. But I want to let you guys know, don't get it twisted about his field goal percentage. If you watch some of those games, better guard play, those field goals numbers are going to go. They're going to be up in the 50s and 60s. Okay, it's going to be high 50s, early 60s. Like, his field goal percentage is going to come up. So don't worry about that. But Clingan showed his defensive intensity, his defensive understanding. He was as advertised. I was very fortunate enough to watch Clingan in the national championship game in Arizona. I went to the game. I watched him versus Zach Edey. Castle was in that game as well. Tristan Newton was in that game, and I forgot their other guard. There's another wing player that played for UConn. He was in that game too. But Clingan, he didn't do nothing that I didn't know he couldn't do. But I have to give him a shout out because he led the summer league in rebounds and blocks, and I think Portland did get their defensive ace. I live in Portland, so I've been watching the Blazers for since I was little, and I think Clingan has for sure, just off of raw ability, I think he has the potential to be the best, defensive big man that Portland's had, at least in my lifetime that I've watched. I don't even think it's even close. He's way better than Joe Prisbilla ever was. Greg Oden obviously had his injury history. Chris Kaman, Robin Lopez, come on. But yeah, he's as good as advertised defensively, for sure. And I think he's probably going to come off the bench for Ayton. I don't think they're going to play them together. But anyways, I don't want to go too crazy into that. I ain't going to go too crazy into that. We'll leave that alone. I'll dive more into the Blazers in another episode, just like the Rockets, just like all these other teams I don't want to dive into. I'll save that for when we get closer to the season. But yeah, shout out to Clingan. He performed really well. And this fifth player, I was not familiar with who he was, his game, nothing about him. And that's Jordan Miller. He went to University of Miami. He's, I believe he played 5 years in college. He spent 2 years at Miami and then I think another 2 or 3 years somewhere else. He led the summer league in scoring. He averaged 25 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 block, 1 steal. His field goal percentage, he shot 55% from the field. On 4 attempts from 3, he shot 60% from 3 and 80% from the free throw line. And it was crazy because literally the very first game he played, he had, I think, 34 or 36. And I watched the highlight and I was like, okay, he got a little game, maybe just got hot one game, But then he did it again, and I'm just like, okay, wait a minute, who is this dude, So then I just kind of just was paying attention to his game. He's a left-hander. He's a wing. He's a guard. He's 6'4". He's about 6'4", 6'5". He's a guard. He ain't no wing. That's not no wing to me. That's a guard. But he plays for the Clippers. Clippers might have got them one. We'll see what happens. His field goal percentage very much lined up with what he did in college. In college, he shot about 55% from the field as well. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to be interested to see if he ends up in the Clippers rotation as the season moves on. But that's a player I would keep your eyes out on. I know it's Summer League, and obviously we know Summer League, it's mixed with D-League players that are not going anywhere, some players that are not, who are not going to get no minutes and no rotation, may not even be in the D-League. I get it. But those kind of numbers can't be ignored. You're shooting 55% from the field. You're doing something right, okay? Averaging 25, he's doing something right. So I just wanted to give a shout out to him, and I want to apologize again about the whole Jalen Wilson thing. My computer didn't update. I don't know why it didn't update, but I want to take a moment and just thank you for watching another episode of the PJ Hoop Podcast. Again, I'm your host, PJ. And the next time you see me will probably be in about 2 weeks. By that time, the Olympics would have concluded already. So I'm going to talk about the Olympic basketball, what I liked and what I disliked about that. I'm also going to talk about Euro Cup, Euro basketball. Euro basketball, they got a tournament going on right now with some highly rated prospects in that. I don't know if you guys are familiar with, but there's a player named Hugo Gonzalez. He's in that tournament. Nolan Traore, he's in that tournament. And then there's another guy named, what's the other kid's name? The other kid's name is, there's another one he's on Spain with Hugo. I forgot his name, but I'm going to be covering them in my next episode. And if anything comes about within that time frame, I'll also probably going to cover that. We'll see what happens with some of these players. I'm seeing things that are saying some players may get traded. We'll see if it actually happens within these next 2 weeks. But again, I want to thank you for tuning into the PJ Hoop Podcast. I'm your host, PJ. PJ out.